Life Reflection, Chapter 8, Family. So I decided to take a little break from the school topic since I feel like too many episodes in a row about school is a little bit much and it can get boring. So I wanted to pivot over to family since it was something I mentioned beforehand, and I think it would be a good idea to talk about it while we're on the topic of telling stories from my younger ages, basically when I was a kid and stuff. And a big part of my life when I was a kid was my family life. And I've mentioned a lot of the bad stuff like the household environment and the divorce between my parents and my arguing with my sister. But I also want to mention some of the good stuff. And there were good things, not just bad things. Again, I think kids are quite resilient in that even though some things can be really bad, they try to make the best out of it and find a lot of good things in life as well. So for me, I had, in my opinion, my childhood was a mixture of good and bad. And for the good moments, I remember them very, very fondly. And I would like to share and reflect on some of those moments now. Of course, not every single one of them is going to be like great, since I think I'll recall some bad ones sometimes based on me recalling the good ones. But we'll see. So where to start? I think maybe a really random memory is that when I went to Universal Studios when I was about like 5 or 6 years old, I remember getting lost. It was the first time I've ever gotten lost in my life. I basically just kept walking straight, even though my family turned and I guess nobody was watching me. So I just kept walking until I realized, hey, there's no one behind me. There was a crowd, so it was kind of hard to find where my parents were, and I was like kind of panicked a little bit. And I think that was the only time I've ever gotten lost as a kid. Like sometimes you see those scenes in like movies or anime where like a kid loses track of their family. That was basically me for about 5 minutes. And luckily, my dad and my mom spotted me at a certain point. I was kind of just like staying in the same spot looking around and not really moving too much. So I think they were able to retrace like where they might have lost me. So that was just a random fun one. There was like I think tape of me stomping on a chair once. I don't remember that memory, but it was like when I was like a 3-year-old or something. My dad would used to record stuff a lot, but I never really watched those tapes very much, but we have them. So if I can find some way to play them at some point, that would be a very fun thing to look back at, just some of the real like earliest memories. And one thing in my childhood, I know we're talking about family, but I guess this sort of involves family as well. My sister started piano lessons when she was pretty young. I think around elementary school for her, maybe like 6th grade or so, because I remember starting lessons like a year or so after she started lessons. And unfortunately for her, she decided to quit because she felt like practicing and the pressure to practice was not fun. For me, oddly, I didn't mind it. Being told to practice something didn't bother me that much, and I very much enjoyed it. I think one of the reasons I actually started playing piano or got interested in it was because I saw my sister playing it, and I wanted to just like, prove my skill and be like, I can do this too. That's sort of how kids are. Sometimes you just like see what other kids are doing, what other people you look up to are doing. Because when I was a kid, I very much looked up to my sister, and I very much like loved her a lot and always looked forward to hanging out with her and seeing her. I remember this one moment where we were in the car and we were about to pick her up, and I was just like so excited and happy, and my parents even noted it and said it. And I thought it was interesting, like how parents talk about you right in front of you when you're a kid, like as if you're not there, but like, you're there and you can remember what they're saying. You can tell and understand what they're saying. But yeah, I remember having a few moments like that where I would just like really, really be excited to see my sister and hang out with her, even though we lived in the same house. We lived in the same room, actually. It was a pretty small room, but we had beds up against the walls and like in the parallel walls. And then there was like a walk space in between the beds. So the walk space, I would say, was only about like 2 feet So not much room. And whenever we had to open our drawers to get like some clothing, we had to make sure the other drawer was closed. We lived in a pretty small apartment sort of house. It was like, I'm not good with like square feet and stuff like that, but I can give a rough estimate in terms of a reference size. So I think the best way to do it is by the size of a regular like sedan or car. Generally, most cars are about the same like size because they have to fit into like a parking spot. And I think most people understand how big a parking spot is. So just imagine like a normal car size, and we're going to measure it using that. So one parking spot, two parking spots was about the size of the living room. And then another two parking spots were the size of where the dining table was and the kitchen. And then I would say our room was just like maybe a parking spot and a half. And the rest of that half was the restroom. So like half a parking spot was the size of the restroom. And then my mom and dad's room was two parking spots, and their restroom was also half a parking spot. So that's the size of the house, basically. And we had like a garage that could fit two cars. We lived right next to our cousin, which was really nice because we would always be able to play. And their house was about the same size as well, maybe just slightly bigger. And we had like a backyard that was probably the size of about 6 parking spots. So that was pretty nice to play in sometimes. We would have birthday parties and bouncers in the backyard. So it wasn't like anything fancy or anything big, but I remember it very fondly, and I loved that home. It really, really still feels like home in a way when I think about it. For a very long time, I had dreams about that place and always just being there. Sometimes me and my sister would just do like funny, ridiculous things when we were kids. Like I remember this one time I just had like this half drunken like water bottle or juice bottle, and I would just like basically continuously backwash it because I was pretending to drink it, and I would splash it against my mouth and then back and forth and back and forth. And my sister thought it was hilarious, and she just kept laughing. And because she kept laughing, I just kept doing it. So there were a lot of like funny moments like that where me and my sister were just playing. And I remember that one time she was asleep and I couldn't sleep, and I just heard her like saying the word churro out loud. I thought that was pretty funny. It was like she kept saying, I want churro. So my sister sleep talked when she was younger. She could possibly still do it. I think it's quite unfortunate, but I think the divorce really pushed me and my sister apart. We'll get to that a little bit later. Or maybe we should just talk about it now since we're on the topic. But there were parts of the divorce that were really bad. And my sister, she did her best to keep my parents together. But when the divorce did happen and all the information was revealed about how he basically cheated on my mom, my sister found that to be unforgivable and did not hold anything back in terms of being angry at him and just everything. And I defended him sometimes and said like, we should just forgive and forget. I remember this one time at the new house. I just remember us all arguing with each other, me and my mom and my sister. And I just kept like saying, let's just forgive and forget, like move on and not worry about it and stuff. But, I was like an 8th grader. I was a naive kid, and her anger was justified. I mentioned this in a previous episode and stuff, but that basically broke us up. That was what caused us to fight constantly and argue with each other constantly and cry, and so much fighting and pain. I think after we moved, my relationship with my sister definitely deteriorated quite rapidly. We were still doing our best to be siblings. We would occasionally talk. We would occasionally do stuff together, hang out. Once I got to high school, because she was a senior in high school while I was a freshman. So we saw each other occasionally, and I hung out with her friends occasionally. So it wasn't like all terrible. Like it was still a sister-brother relationship, but there was definitely a lot of tension between us sometimes, and we were quick to argue. Sometimes that tendency comes out even now, but I'm glad to say for the most part that we've reconciled a lot of the things that have happened in the past, and we definitely have a healthier, like way healthier relationship compared to back then in high school. But I think there's something about that, like really young, childish love that I had for my sister that I miss a little bit. Like it was a love, it was a excitement and connection that was pure, and just like having that person in your life who you're happy to see and happy to hang out with. And I was the younger brother that was a brat, so sometimes she wouldn't like see me in the same way, but I definitely looked up to her, and really, yeah, I think this part has me kind of wanting to cry. I don't want to cry right now, but like I honestly really wish that we had a healthier upbringing so that we could have had a better relationship when we were kids growing up. I think since we're on the topic a little bit, like one thing I remember me and my sister talking about a lot when it was like college, when I was in college and stuff, we had time apart when she was in college. So things got better when there was more space, especially around that age, like the teenage age where you're just grumpy a lot. And after a certain point, we talked about our past and family and everything. And it was just like, I remember telling her like, why are we so distant? Why are we not closer? Because I feel like if there's anyone in this world who understands what you went through, it's me, because I'm your brother, because we lived in the same house. We experienced the same divorce and all that stuff. Like, I think at a certain point, I just really, really wanted her to understand that I experienced that as well. Like, it wasn't just her. I know it affected her in completely different ways, and she was older as well. She could understand more, and I get it. It was a different experience, a different overall experience, but it was still the same stuff that happened to us. And yeah, we definitely took it in different ways, but I guess back then I didn't fully see that. Now I do. I fully understand and can comprehend that, and I don't expect, like, I don't want to generalize it to the point to say, like, even if it's just the two of us, and even if it's the same event, like, it was a different experience for the both of us. And now I fully get that. But back then I was very, very sad that she wouldn't at least give me a little bit of a confirmation that, that what I said was like somewhat true, and there's like a connection there. But I think she did agree a little bit at the very least. I guess I just wanted a bit more. But there is a lot that I still can do and want to do to put the past behind us, like me and my sister. I feel like I definitely wasn't the best brother back then. And I get how like all of that history can really prevent you and hold you back from like opening up and being close and everything. Like, I fully get it. Crap, I started crying, but yeah, I didn't expect this again. I somewhat did. I mentioned it in the beginning. I might get into sadder parts because talking about the happier ones, it's like linked, like those fond memories I had as a kid with her, with my sister. It's just sometimes makes me think like, I know it's impossible to be exactly like that, but at least better than we are now, I guess, is what I want. It's not like we have a terrible relationship or anything. It's just when I imagine how we were back then compared to now, I'm talking about kids. I know it's like innocent stuff. It's like before all this shit happened, but it's still something I feel like I would like to experience again with my sister. But I'll work on it. I will. But just to not make this all about that, on the topic of siblings, I also have a half brother. He's older, and we didn't grow up together. I only occasionally saw him, but I think towards my adult life, I started to connect with him more. And my half brother has had a really, really rough history overall, and a really hard upbringing for sure. Probably worse than mine, considering our father wasn't even there for him. And I also have a half sister. She's younger than me. Again, I didn't grow up with her, but I occasionally see her, and I try my best to be the best older brother I can be. But that's about it in terms of immediate family. I haven't talked too much about my mom yet. I actually currently still live with my mom. So it's less of a past thing and more of a present thing, but my mom has progressed a lot over time, like I noticed it. And then she used to be quite traditional, very strict. She's a lot looser now, and I think she's really grown as a person. I think the divorce really had forced her to have to grow. And I think one of the saddest things about my childhood is that when I think about my mom and my dad together, I think I can only recall 2 or 3 vivid memories of them actually laughing and being happy together. I know for sure there was way more than that, but that's my memory. That's my perspective on the matter, because most of the time it was just a lot of arguing or just neutral. But really seeing my parents showing love to each other and acting fond around each other, I actually thought that was weird. I actually thought that was strange. I was like, what is this? What's even happening right now? I remember that feeling. And thinking about it as an adult, that's one of the saddest things. I think I used to have a better, when I was a kid, I really loved my mom. I would hug her all the time. We showed each other affection a lot. And obviously when you grow up as an adult, it's not the same as when you're a kid. But I think after the divorce, there was a distance between us for sure created. And like I said before, I blamed myself for the divorce for a long time, and I just couldn't find myself to, I don't know, there's just some thing that prevented me from feeling close to my mom, especially when I felt responsible for all her pain. And even despite knowing that now, that I'm not responsible, I wasn't, it's still hard to break that barrier and be close. And not everything is perfect right now either. Currently my mom and my sister are in a dispute, and there's a little tension around that, and I don't know, there's a lot that I wish. I do really, really wish some things were different and that some things didn't play out in the way they did. But I think I really do believe that I have the power to change things and at least make my relationship better with each person. Maybe the family altogether may not have the same level of closeness ever again. We are a broken family, but at the very least I can try to pick up some of the pieces and at least link me with each other person. I think this is something I have to do to honor the past, to honor the memories of us having those few times and few moments together where it really did feel like a family. I think I'm kind of incapable of talking more, so I'll just end it here. I did kind of want to talk way more about extended family, because they play a huge role in my childhood life as well. But I think we're going to have to save that for the next one. I need to recuperate a little bit.